All right, folks, we are live. Welcome to the Sam Stevenson podcast. Today, I have with me Drew Jeffress. He is the director of all things houses, and this man has an impressive sales track record. I'm hopefully going to be able to peel some sales information out of him today, and hopefully by the end, he has convinced me to give him all of my money, and we'll see how that goes. So, first of all, Drew, you were involved in a very large real estate development here in College Station called the Barracks.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about what that was? Like, what is the problem they were solving there?
Yeah. So originally when the Barracks started out, it was not going to be near the scale that it is now. It was really kind of a small, let's call it a 10 to 12 acre opportunity that came along. And it was just the wrong time, we'll say. And there was some difficulty selling the original phases of that. And so they kind of adapted. Obviously, we're a college town, adapted into let's lease these things. We got to have some money somewhere. Let's lease these things. And it took off like wildfire. They leased them no problem. And that's whenever they kind of saw this opportunity to scale and like, how big can we take this thing? What's the demand of a growing university at the time? How many of these things can we build and sell to parents, sell to investors who just need somewhere to park cash. And it was as it kind of took off, it was just like wildfire. It was the right time in the real estate market, the right time at the university. And it was a kind of a new, fresh idea and take on investment and student housing in general. And it made it available to your everyday mom and pop type investor, not just the really, really wealthy folks.
Right. So I didn't know that it was like it was a small thing. Like what was the what wasn't working before they decided to change
general,
their model?
I mean the brunt of it was 2008, 2009, 2010, if you will.
Wow.
The real estate market was non-existent, if more or less. And so they had a hard time moving the product. Now, there's nothing wrong particularly with the product. They just had a hard time selling the product to, whether it was to parents who had kids coming here or individuals who just wanted to live in the townhomes. But because even back that long ago, A&M was starting to see some of the growth that they experienced, and there wasn't the kind of glut of student housing that is here now. And so those students didn't want to live on campus anymore. They were moving away at that time. It was kind of the beginning of moving away from the traditional apartment complex style. And this got them off campus into a, single family home. It's townhome, but single family. They have a grass backyard. There's grass in the front of your yard. It's not the kind of the concrete paradise type thing. And it leased very, very well. And whenever you put a lease on a building, then all of a sudden somebody can put money behind that and start seeing money monthly. And it just kind of starts making sense.
So can you break down, I don't even have to explain the whole thing, but could you explain the difference in like when you switched the model into this leasing thing? How was that different? How was that able to be sold easier?
Yeah. So really it broke down is we were, and honestly, I wasn't even involved at this point in time. It was trying to sell an empty property to anybody, and the real estate market was terrible. Everybody was having a hard time selling, whether that was your traditional single family homes, whether that was student properties, any and all real estate, commercial, everything at that time was having difficulties. So when you put a student in there, or 3 students or 4 students, or however many it is, and they're paying rent monthly, all of a sudden that property has income associated to it. So Sam, you could take your money, buy that property, and in turn that income starts coming to you and it starts to cash flow. Obviously for us, now looking back on it, it makes tons of sense. Wish I would have personally bought them all, because the value of those properties, real estate over time on the larger scale goes up. Obviously there's some ebbs and flows in the narrow view, but real estate goes up. And so there's a lot of people out there that know that, see that, believe in that. And so they put their money, buy those properties, take the income monthly, and some make more than others doing that monthly, but over time that property is going to appreciate and they're going to see their money.
So would you say, like, are you saying people, like family could come in and then they're buying, like, because the barracks are each like 4 units in one building. Is that right?
4 or 5, 6 units in one building, but they're all individually platted. So while they're connected, it's just a single family home. You can buy one at a time, 27 foot wide at a time. And so it's individually platted. You have your own survey. You own that little piece of dirt, just like a single family home.
So y'all had a way to, cause like I used to be a civil engineer of sorts, and I drew a few plats. So like you're saying that like that property line runs right through
the middle of the townhome. The construction, the common wall is really about 7 inches wide. So there's, sheetrock insulation studs on one side, then there's an air gap, which you're building a firewall is what you're building. There's an air gap, and then there's the insulation studs and sheetrock on the other side. So there's really a property line going right down the middle of them.
So because of that, and how is that any different from like a regular condo regime? Like,
so the real difference in general, I'll say, between condos and townhomes is when you buy a condo. If you bought a condo, you would own from the walls in, and the condo association owns all of the exterior. So it's not individually platted. You don't have a survey on what you own, anything like that. You own a unit inside of the unit. Townhomes are individually platted, so you own that piece of land and what's on top of it.
So if someone were to run across like oil in their backyard, then would they have rights to it? Or is there like there was an HOA as part of that?
Yeah, there's an HOA. Well. So one, the mineral rights, somebody owns the mineral rights way back.
Okay.
So those mineral rights are not transferring with the sale. And in the HOA docs, it says you can't drill for oil on your property.
Did they wrote that in when they sold the barracks?
It's in basically every HOA documents that you find is in traditional, master plan developments anyways.
Okay.
They're too small to do it, but.
Got it. Okay. So could you explain, because I would imagine personally, if I was running a business or I was part of a operation that wasn't going anywhere, and then someone came up with an idea that was like fitting a certain solution in the market, and the market explodes off of it. Were you the one who was like trying to handle this whole like sales explosion? How did that go?
No. So when I came along, so it was probably 2008 to 2010 to 11 is kind of when they had some of the difficulties. They kind of saw some of the opportunities with the leasing and kind of came up with the plan of how to grow it. I came on board. It was in end of 2013, beginning of 2014. So some of that had already started. The brunt of the plan anyway was kind of in place, and they had started building more and selling more. It was really 2014 to 2017 is when the majority of those were built, constructed, leased, sold, et cetera, to kind of their end user. About 150 to 170 townhomes per year in each of those years. So it was a lot from every aspect, from the development of the infrastructure to the construction of the homes, to the leasing, to the sales, the whole thing. And then the long-term management of those afterwards.
Right. And so, you had mentioned something about the barracks before you're here. Are you still somewhat connected to what's going on over there? Are they still building?
We're still building. The original developers of the barracks, builders of the barracks, have kind of stepped out, stepped away, doing other things. Kind of, moved on to other ideas.
There's only so many times you can build this.
Yeah. They all look the same. We have come in and we purchased the remaining lots that were left in the barracks. We have since built those out over the last 2 years, basically. And then we purchased an adjacent parcel of land about 2 years ago, and then put in roads. It connects to the barracks. The street names are barracks related names, connects to it. And then that will be about 75 more townhomes. We're building 27 of them this year, and then probably like 27, 25, something like that.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot. How do you, and you're mixing that in with like all the other stuff that you've got going on?
Mixing it in. Yeah. We're a small shop, but we're all kind of all hands on everything that we do.
You're referring to Boxwood
real estate. Yeah. Okay. Kind of jack of all trades, master of none. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know, but we kind of all have our hands in a little bit of everything of what we do and try to be as, we kind of call it vertically integrated. We can help you find a property to lease if you want to lease a townhome for $1,000 a month, or we can help you sell your $3 million house, or we can find land to develop. We can be a part of that development process. We can build, we can sell the end product for builders. We can sell the end product for ourselves. We can sell the end product for, you're tired of this house, you're moving. We can sell the product for you. Try to kind of, real estate as a whole, have our hands in every piece of it.
How do you manage, with the idea of like the more things you are doing, the less focused you are on each individual thing? Mm-hmm. As a real estate business, can a business excel because they have a reach to so many different aspects, or like
hopefully.
Okay.
Organization is kind of key. Organization communication, I'll say, is key. The communication piece is one of those things that the bigger you get, the harder it is to communicate with everybody. Right. If we had 25
more people to communicate
25
with.
Employees, it would be really hard to keep 25 employees in the loop on every single little thing. We couldn't have 25 people with all of their hands in every single piece of the pie.
Got it.
But because we're a smaller team, we have a group chat or group text. There's only 4 of us. Like, it's not that hard to keep up with. If there's 25, there's no way you could keep up with it. So communication is key. Organization, we have a meeting rhythm that, every single year at the end of the year during our kind of annual planning, I say it every year, and I think we all agree to it now, but I continue to say it, is like, we need to decide what our meeting rhythm is, and we need to stick to it. And we're going to be really, really busy on Tuesday in July, but Tuesday afternoon is set aside for meetings, and we got to stick to it, because you got to know what's going on if you want to keep all that stuff, up in the air.
Yes. That's having, I was just in the process of reading Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And he's talking in there about like the importance of having your inbox and your calendar aligned and controlled. And if they're not, it's just kind of, everything's kind of to the wind, and you solve the problems as they come up. But the issue with that is that
you're not getting ahead of anything.
Yeah, you're not getting ahead of anything. Mm-hmm. You're not solving the biggest problems and the most important ones that really move the ball forward. So, what would you say is the big thing that like moves the ball forward in growing a real estate? Are y'all interested in growing the business bigger?
Bigger
projects?
Yeah, to an extent, bigger projects. We're trying to work on a few different things right now to kind of growth into some other things. It's kind of staying on top of what's going on. Really, it's like what's needed, what's they're lacking. Like you're here, look around right now. Student housing is not necessarily lacking right now. There is a lot of student housing. There's a lot of stuff going up, in the Northgate area, all the high rises that are there going up and coming. So it's kind of just trying to keep your finger on the pulse of what's needed. And at the end of the day, what's valuable. One of our little core values for our company is phone ring and be slanging. Like we want our phone to be ringing. We want to be the people that we want Sam to call us and be like, hey man, I saw this sign on this random street. Do you know what that is? We want people asking us those questions, because that keeps us involved in the whole aspect of what's going on, whether it's residential, commercial, student housing, anything.
I was working with a mentor recently, and one of the things that we talk about is trying to attract different types of people to events or to anything. And he was making a joke that, like, if you want a pretty girl to come to your party, right? If you reach out and say, if let's say you have her phone number and you text her, like there's a percentage that she responds. And the joke was that, like, if you get good at that, then the real estate guy is going to be a piece of cake because they answer their phone.
Yeah.
Or they should anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, in the real estate world, I don't remember what the number was, but in these 2 towns in our little association here, there's like 1,300, 1,500 something agents. and there's not that much work to be done.
Yeah.
Right. It's, the 80-20 rule is in mass effect here. But you see,
are y'all in the 80 or the 20?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's hard to say.
No, but it's one of those things, like, we honestly feel like some of our success comes from, we're going to answer the phone or we're going to call you back. And there are a lot of people that don't. There are a lot of people that don't. Can we get every single phone call? No, that's not valuable. And if you don't leave a message, or are we going to call you back? Maybe, maybe not. If we don't know the number,
if it wasn't important.
But if somebody leaves you a message, like, we're going to call back. And that for us has helped, our personal little portfolio of rental properties that we lease ourselves. We probably lease better than a lot of people do because we answer the call when a renter calls.
Right.
The other real estate agent, she's just working for some investor who owns the property. Does she want to lease it? Yeah, but is she going to answer her phone at her son's basketball game?
Nope.
Not gonna happen. Versus, if it's your property.
That's right. That's true. Nobody cares more than the one living inside of it.
Right.
That's for sure. So before I moved in this apartment, on the subject of apartments,
the concrete paradise.
Yes. Yes. This is a great, I honestly love this building. I was living in College Main apartments,
Okay.
A little bit older of a complex, up there on Northgate. And when I was there, easy walk to right down College Main to Northgate. So back and forth.
Good and bad.
Yep. There was lots of other people like to walk down that road and be loud as well, which is a thing. But there was a lot that was just cleared and it was grass for, I don't know, had to be 8 months to a year ago. And for the most time it was like that. And I was like, oh, I wonder what's happening with that lot, but it was fenced off. And I was, for the longest time, nothing was happening. And then I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 months ago, someone dropped off a whole bunch of equipment and I was like, oh, this is going to be exciting. And so now they got huge piers going in. They got this massive, 40-foot tall truck thing that's just drilling down and they're putting massive. So I'm assuming some kind of very tall building is going there. Do you know anything about what's going on that?
I do think I don't think it's one of the 20-story high rises that are going in right there kind of on Northgate, but it is something similar to that. If it's where I think it is, they had some issues with their original investor, which is why it kind of sat for so long.
Oh, okay.
But that area it's changing so fast. I mean, the homes and apartments there, most of them are older, the existing stuff. So it sounds crazy, but to just tear it down and start over is not that far-fetched.
Yeah. I was talking to some associates that I know from Northgate. And the word on the street goes around that all this big money is going to come in from Chicago and all these other real estate investment places, and they're just going to be tearing everything up in that area to make these huge buildings because it just makes sense. So there's apparently some buy sell pressure for some of the bars and some of the places there on Northgate.
Absolutely, and I mean, whether you like it or not, agree with it or not, I spent my fair share of time at Northgate as well. The folks that own those buildings now that are the bars now, they're 2 generations removed, 3 generations removed from their dads or granddads or great granddads or their family that kind of started those businesses, but started leasing those things out, and they're not that emotionally connected to it. So money talks, their money
it
talks
sure does.
big time.
Yeah.
And a bar can only pay so much rent before it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And if the bars can't, pay the person who owns that building enough, or if they do own the building and somebody from Chicago comes in and offers them enough, I mean, I like it, but I can't fault them necessarily.
Right. And the funny thing is that I've heard some responses and some college students be like, no, they can't tear down Northgate. That's where we go to drink. And it's you're not going to find some other place to make another bar. I'm sure
it's valuable dirt. I mean, it's right there. It's valuable dirt.
That's true. They know locations key. Yep. I don't know. I've never been a huge fan that university's like right there, and like you just trip and now you're inside a major road.
Yep.
And people tend to trip more when they're under the influence of alcohol. But anyway, so yeah, so a lot of crazy stuff going on Northgate. Just like you said, there was a glut of student housing here. Would you say that like there's too much going around?
I wouldn't necessarily say that right now. It's a little bit hard to say. Kind of see where it all shakes out with the amount of large projects that are going on there at Northgate, and with like kind of the enrollment freeze that they've been talking about and what those numbers actually look like.
Oh, an enrollment freeze. First time I heard of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they like officially announced it, but it's still, to me, and I probably haven't done quite as much research as I should, is a little bit vague. And like, instead of adding, 2,000 more students than leave, or are they going to add the same number of students? So it's like, it stays at that number. So it's not growing, but it stays at the number we're at now. Or are we going to take the enrollment number down? A little bit unknown. So, those can play factors in it. There's obviously a lot of competition out there, which, for good and bad, depending on which side of the table you're on. But currently I think that the leasing cycle that we're just about to wrap up for leases that start next year, or for start in August, has been very strong again this year. I would expect it to be similar next year. And then when some of those Northgate properties get online and some of the enrollment freeze really starts taking effect, we'll really feel it probably 2 years from now, 3 years from now. We'll have a good idea of like, where do we sit? Like, what's the demand?
Okay. Now I heard, I was talking to another real estate person here in College Station, and they were mentioning that the excessive student pressure for like student housing kind of puts a premium on rentals. So like generally, if I was going to pick like, well, do I want to buy a house or do I want to rent a house? I'm thinking about like my business, what I could do with my money if I didn't put it in a house, put it in my business. I don't know. So their point was that students aren't coming in and buying houses. Therefore, it's kind of like a separate market, and
100%.
You're going to be able to get a better mortgage than like the equivalent rent.
Yeah.
What's your take?
Yes and no. Like the demand for rentals is so high. It drives the prices of properties up, because from an investor standpoint, they're just looking at it from a dollars and cents. They don't care if the house costs $10 million if the rent is there to offset that cost, or it could be $100,000 and the rent is there to offset that cost. That drives investors always want to drive the rent up. So it's getting more and more expensive, which in turn drives the price up, because the person selling wants to get the most out of it.
Sure.
As well. Where that really, I'll say, hurts around here is guys like yourself. You want to go buy something for yourself. You're, a young guy. You're not making, millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. I don't think. Maybe you are.
Maybe I am.
Maybe you are.
Wink, wink.
But so it's hard for you to go in and buy something here, because that price is getting driven by those rentals.
Right.
And college students there, obviously there's a ton of them, and they, we call it the shadow market. You have your traditional apartments like this one, all around Northgate, all that, all of your big complexes, the cottages and the barracks and all that. But then there's what we call shadow market, that is all the single family homes around town that are maybe they're managed by a management company. Maybe, I own it and I manage it myself and I just lease it out myself, that kind of thing. There's tons of them out there that there's not a ton of data on. It's hard to get data on it. So we kind of call it the shadow market. And what do those look like? Are those things 50% full? Are those things 99% full? Are those rents going to be pushed? Are they not? And that plays into the leasing prices, the sales prices, the supply demand, the whole thing.
Okay. So I want to come back a little bit to the barracks situation. How would you describe your role? Like, as that got bigger, what was your job? Were you on the phone with people, like convincing them left and right
absolutely.
to give them lots of money?
Yeah, trying. No. So when I first got over there, it was really, Luke called me and he's like, "Hey man, I need help. I'm just drowning." It was, 2013, 2014. they're building 170 townhomes each of those years. He was the only person selling in there. He's like, I just need help. Come help. And it was, for me, didn't have any real estate experience at all. Me and Luke had a relationship, and that's it. Like, we knew each other from other business stuff. He kind of called me in. He was like, hey, I need help. We're selling 170 townhomes. We're starting next week. Here's what they are. Here's the pricing. I need you to, build this. And it was just kind of like, drinking from a fire hose. But for me personally, I like to listen and learn. So like, we sat either back to back or face to face. I don't remember how our desks were set up at the time, but I would kind of listen to what he was doing, and I'd scribble things down, and next thing you know, fast forward, he was probably 3 years later. Him and I are going to California, to LA, to put on seminars to sell to some of the big money people in LA. We decided in that time, I'll backtrack a little bit. We decided in that time, instead of selling 170 townhomes to 170 different people and having 170 contacts and 170 contracts at the title company, and just makes me want to throw up thinking about it. We got to the point where it's like, hey, what if we sold these things? And you mentioned it earlier, instead of by the individual unit, by the building.
Yeah.
It goes from a $250,000 barrier to entry to a $1.5 million barrier to entry. You're going to cut out some of the smaller investors, some of the mom and pop, some of the local, type investors, but you're going to get into a little bit more sophisticated investor. You can sell it to 15 people and sell out the whole lot versus 170 people, whatever those numbers are. So getting at first it was just the organization of the system and how much was going on, but then it was building it to like, does this make sense? How does it make sense? Where can we find these people? How do we go get them? What do we need? Whether from marketing material to construction docs to the whole thing, and what do we need to take with us? How can we do it and pitch it to them and get them on board, and then help them be successful with the investment.
Right. Had you had previous like sales experience?
Sales, yes. I was kind of in like a construction trade industry, working with builders. I supplied flooring for builders. So kind of is in the sales world, at least. Okay.
So, I mean, selling some vinyl flooring versus selling a $1.5 million investment.
That had vinyl flooring. Yeah. Exactly. No.
Wait till I tell you about the flooring.
Similar idea, but it that knowledge continues to help me. Like even today, I'm 15 years removed from that almost, and I still like, okay, well, in the flooring, we need to do this or that, or it's still valuable experience.
Yeah, that's fair. I can very much relate to that, being someone who draws plans, and yet I still hear every day situations come up that are like, well, my engineering or for my forensic experience would tell me this, and so we should do this, and so
it helps.
It helps. Yeah,
it helps. It helps too when you have a good product. It helps when you have a project that is incredible. A lot of people worked very hard on. You had a good team behind you. It's an easy sell, but at the end of the day, what I was doing was it was numbers based. It was, do the numbers make sense? Are the numbers real? Can we prove them? And can we perform on them? And once you kind of have that track record and can prove that you do, it becomes easy, if you will.
Yeah, it almost seems like, because you're doing very much B2B at that point. Now, if you're doing flooring and were you selling to builders or people consuming?
Builders generally.
Got it. So I would imagine even more so with investors, since it's so numbers based. It's like you don't have to memorize the word tricks.
Nope.
And the emotional heartstring pulls. You're just like, hey, these numbers make you this return. Do you want to participate?
It's a pro forma, and then it's past results. And it's like, here's where we're expecting this project to be for this year. Mm-hmm. Here's the past results from the past 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Here's the pictures of what it looks like. Do you like it? Do you not?
Yeah. That's awesome. So how did Boxwood come out of the barracks?
So kind of Luke's brainchild, to be honest with you. He was at the barracks for about 10 years, and just wanted some more growth, wanted to get into some of the other the other aspects of real estate. He's got a passion for fundraising. He's got a passion for never saying no to anything. Just wants to go all the time. So he left the barracks right as COVID started. Great timing. I'm sure that scared him a little bit.
Yeah, I bet.
And kind of started the kind of Boxwood dream. I was at the barracks, officially an employee at the barracks for about 2 more years after that. And then kind of the same thing. It was getting to the point I kind of mentioned the original developers and builders kind of were getting out of it, didn't want to do it anymore, done it enough times, that kind of thing. And to be honest, I didn't have a whole lot to do. We went a couple of years without building. Well, when you're not building, I'm not selling.
Yeah. What did you fill your time with?
It's a great question. It was trying to do some different things on the resale market within the barracks. But again, there's only so many things reselling that it wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
I'll say in general. So just kind of wanted to spread my wings a little bit and left and kind of joined back up with Luke and we just were like, okay, well, let's start doing stuff. And
that's fair.
We started actually right across the street from here. There's a little townhome community right across the street from you here that we bought 4 lots in one building. And
did you?
That was one of the first things that we built about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. 4 years ago.
So it sounds like you're, I would imagine it's a little bit more exciting dealing with like not the same building.
Correct.
It's like, well, here's a new set of problems. We like the problem solving part.
Absolutely. It's everything. Every day is different. And we still build in the barracks, and there's still problems, I'll say, at the barracks.
How many units? How many buildings did you guys make at the barracks?
There are about just over 900 front doors right now.
900. Okay. Yeah. And so after 900, you're saying there's still hiccups?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How is that? Is it just,
a lot of it, a lot of it is trades. You got to have good trades. And you never know where the bad apple is.
That's true.
A little bit. But anywhere from all of a sudden there's a shortage in 2x4s that we didn't know about last week, but here it is this week.
Right.
Or, hey, this week, hey, the cabinets, they don't fit. The door's in the way. What are we going to do? And it's random stuff like that that should have been caught. But it's, we have a list of like, hey, we got to make sure to check this at this point, this at this point, this and this point. It becomes, when you're doing, what do we have right now? 5 buildings, 27 units going on. And this list, if we put everything that we need to check on every single unit, this list would be pages and pages and pages long.
Yeah.
It's just something gets missed, randomly.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. The codes change. And if you don't catch, the code change, but you don't necessarily anticipate how it's going to affect your building per se.
Right.
You could run into some issues there. Dealing with the municipalities, whether it's, here in College Station, Bryan, in Houston, we had, our fair share of issues. The public works people, the utility people, overcoming, what their requirements, if you will, are, and are their requirements.
You get a new inspector who's like, well, I don't like the way this guy was approving stuff. So
100%. And they can, the inspector's not quite as much, but the BTU power agency, like all of a sudden on April 1st decided that this is going to be different. It's like, well, we've been under construction for 6 months. It's too late for us to change that. And they don't really care. There's just some things that I say you can't control, but you just kind of have to adapt.
That's fair. That makes sense. I recently was involved in a construction endeavor, and it was the last one I will ever do.
Okay.
When I got started into this, I was building with my hands, because that's all I knew how to do. I started as an engineer, and I was like, well, I want to do stuff outside. So I started building with my hands. I had no concept of the fact that you should be making lots of money too. That was not super present in my brain. I had a downstream goal, but yeah. So I was doing that, and then tried starting my first business. Didn't understand acquisitions, so failed, and then ended up in Washington, where I was framing and siding as a guy doing stuff with my hands, and had a friend who was like, "Hey, I got this old garage in my backyard. Can we turn it into an ADU?" And I was like, "Well, shoot, maybe. Let's draw you one and see what happens." And so I drew the plans, and she was like, "Sounds great. How much would it cost?" And I was like, "I don't know. Let's figure it out." So I put together some numbers into what I thought it was going to cost for materials. I was pretty close. I wasn't. It was more, believe it or not. It was more expensive.
Pretty close on the wrong side.
Yep, that's right. Yep. But it was close enough that like she was able to get a loan for the materials, and I was able to like slap it all together. And that was the first time that I was like, man, from the ground up, I like assembled a building, and that was really cool to me. Now I will say, because it was the first time I'd done the whole thing, there's, a certain level of craftsmanship that was not attained, right? It didn't look bad, but so with that experience, I came down to Texas, restarted the business, and was like, all right, let's try this building thing one more time. But instead of me doing everything, I'm going to pay other people who are professionals to do their job. And man, that was even more of a headache. I can't believe how difficult that was and how many little things can go wrong when you just, even when you're checking every day, it's crazy.
And it can pile up.
Yeah.
That's one of, I try to tell several guys that work for us, and even our trades, is like, if you know something's wrong, bad news doesn't get better with time.
Mm-hmm.
You need to tell me, or you need to let somebody else address it. Whatever it is, it needs to be addressed immediately, because if we can address it now, maybe we can solve it in 2 days versus waiting 2 or 3 days. And then it takes another week to,
Yeah. Congratulations. You're not going to rip off all your sheetrock.
Exactly. It can roll downhill very, very quickly. To, solving problems, maybe not immediately, but as fast as you can, to get it behind you, get it off your list. Like, because that's what keeps you up at night.
Yes. On the subject of errors, what would you say is the biggest nightmare you had to deal with when you were doing the barracks?
Man. From a construction aspect?
Either way, because I could imagine financial nightmares being very stressful.
There's been some financial nightmares for sure. Arguably the toughest one I'll say I had to deal with was the gentleman was actually a resale. We'd sold him the barracks properties originally from the developer. He'd owned them for 6 or 8 years, and called and said, "Hey, I'm ready to sell these things. Can you guys help me sell them?" "Yeah, cool, no problem. Here's the paperwork. Here's this. Here's what we'll do. Here's how this is gonna go. Blah blah blah." Got it under contract, going through the process, and we get down to at the time it felt like hours, but it was probably a week before closing or 10 days before closing or whatever. Title company calls and says, that old IRS people, they put a lien on all of these properties, and there was like 8 or 10 of them. They put a lien on all of these properties, for extra.
Those IRS people.
Yeah, we won't get into the whole issues, but solving that with the federal government, that's tough. That is a headache. And you've got a buyer over here that is anxious and ready to purchase, and they've got money tied up in it.
Yeah.
While you're trying to, Uncle Sam doesn't have a real good phone number. That you can just give him a call.
Yeah. Who's the guy at the IRS building that'll answer solve my problem for me? Yeah.
Trying to work through that was some of the toughest times I've had, for sure.
Man, that's like.
But there's always something. There's always something different.
Yeah.
It's always different. Always. After years and years, it's always something different.
I can't if I've learned anything, it's the people with a lot of money, they care more about their money.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
that's not something I'd want to get tangled up in, but it seems like you handled it.
Well, and
fine.
it's, people with a lot of money, they have a lot of money for a reason.
Yep.
Most of them are pretty smart, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't like to pay taxes, and they have different ways that they could do to avoid some tax, and maybe you just avoided a little bit too well.
A little bit too well.
Yeah,
and Mr. IRS came calling.
Far,
Oh man.
It's like our president doesn't like to pay taxes.
But
the
systems are in place for those who want to use it to use
Same
it.
rules apply to everybody.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into detail about me and my taxes and how I handle that. I'm not gonna do that on air here. So let me ask you this about Boxwood.
Yep.
There's a huge range in quality of construction nowadays. I mean, you've got people who are like, Matt Risinger up here who are throwing money at, I say that with like a negative tone in my voice. They are using money to solve very specific problems for people who care a lot about those problems, which is awesome.
Yep.
And then there's people who can just barely afford to get in a house.
Yep.
Right. You can't build the same quality of construction for both people. So like if Boxwood's going to be on board with an investment property, how do you guys handle that balance in terms of picking out the right value things that are like, this is going to cost a little bit more, but it's a huge improvement and this is just not worth it?
Yeah. We don't want to be the guys that are competing with, I'll leave names out of it, but like the big national builders that everybody knows that come in and throw these studs up and throw these cardboard on the outside of their buildings, and, or building these things.
Staple it up.
Yeah. that's not who we want to be.
Yeah.
We also, kind of in the same breath, we believe like one of our policies that is just about everything that we build. We also want to be able to rent and keep if we want to, which leans more towards entry-level type homes. We're in a community right now building across the street from one of those big boys, and the same size house, square footage house, they're $30,000 to $50,000 less expensive than we are.
Yeah.
We've done well in that neighborhood, and we would never want to be 100 homes versus 100 homes against them. They'll outsell us every day of the week. It comes out in dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody can afford to, but if we're building a smaller number than what they are, we can find those people that see the value and can afford the value in having a full masonry exterior and having 16-inch studs and better insulation and designer light fixtures and designer tile finishes, that kind of stuff, versus the stuff that goes up so fast it'll blow your mind and storm blows through and it comes down. And, the whole thing.
There was I have personally this really weird mix, which is that I'm a single guy, and so there's a certain level of finish I just don't care about.
Yep.
Right. This place is frankly way nicer than the other place, and I was already fine with the other place. Like it didn't need to be. But there's like what do you think is there room in the market for someone to build with things that I do care about are, I want my interior environment to be separate from my exterior environment, right? So I care a lot about air sealing, and I care a lot about indoor air quality. And so, but don't care about my cabinets being custom, or, they can be, not from Home Depot, but basic, that kind of thing. So have you seen construction where people come in, they're like, yeah, we're going to build a nice tight building. We're going to put some good tech in it so that it's a healthy space to live in. But the finishes, we hold that down. In my opinion, people just love the finishes.
And I'll say that's not where you make your money, but you would probably be the outlier in a purchasing environment, right? Yes, people love having the indoor air quality and the being tight and sealed and good insulation and clean air and the whole works. And there's definitely, systems that you can get that do that. Obviously cost money, but you can't then say, oh, we're going to build the rest of the interior really, not even really poorly, but really, 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 really basic to keep that price down.
Yeah.
Because most people that walk in the door aren't going to see, and the things that you talk about, you don't see.
Yep.
Most people are going to walk through the door and look at it. You can't put your house on a parade of homes because people are like, what is it? Kind of.
They're not going to notice when they walk in and the air feels great.
Exactly. And, it's a hard sell.
Yeah.
Valuable, and there's a place for it, but I don't think that you can take that tech, as you mentioned, the tech of the house really, really high and bring everything else down to keep the price down, because you're not going to sell very many of those houses. If you take the tech up, you also have to keep the finishes of the house up, and then it's going to sell at a higher price.
Got it. Do you think there's a portion of that that's like, is it a majority of like women who are like walking in and being like, I want to see it a certain way?
I mean, women, Instagram house, the whole Pinterest, that whole thing, they have this idea of what they want.
Right.
So that's, you see that a lot, but there's a lot of men too. Men, they want to have a game room, a man cave, golf simulator, room for this, room for that, that kind of stuff.
Maybe even a podcast studio.
Exactly.
No one's innocent.
I think probably the biggest, and it's a little hard to actually, the biggest difference right now is people's expectations and what can be done with a certain amount of money. The builders in the world, and I don't care where you're at, are they're doing it to make money. Also, they're going to make a certain amount of money, and some of them make a lot of money doing it. The price of the house is not going to get much cheaper, right? But then men and women alike are on Howls and Instagram and Pinterest, and they want the shiplap, and they want the golf simulator, and they want this, and they want that, and that just pushes the price, and there's a disconnect on what it costs to do something and what people expect right now. And until those things come together, it's really hard.
Yeah. And it's tough to go up to, as a builder who's, let's say $20 a square foot more expensive than the other builder, be like, well, I don't know what he's putting inside your bones of your house.
Yep.
Like, and yours, like the foundation is a perfect example. When I was doing structural engineering, there wasn't a single plan that left our firm that wasn't going to be a foundation that was going to stay very stiff for a very long time.
Yep.
But there were lots of people building foundations in San Antonio that were not from us.
Sure.
And what that meant is, what's the city minimums? Let's do the city minimums.
100%.
Let's make it post tension as quick and easy as we can get it. Find the cheapest guy to do it. And look, you have a foundation. 20 years from now, it's not going to look like that.
Yeah.
And that was a perfect example of like, people don't appreciate how nice and strong their foundation is. It's in the dirt.
Yeah. And it's hard, all of those things that you talked about cost money. It costs for you guys to design it. It costs money to dig it. And it costs money for if there's extra concrete, it costs money, and rebar is expensive right now. It costs extra money.
Yep.
And those are things that, Sally Sue walks in, who's been looking at Instagram. She wasn't looking at pictures of foundations on Instagram.
She wasn't? Are you sure?
No, she was looking at the shiplap and this, and the whole thing. So they're very, very valuable.
Yeah.
But how do you get that across?
Yeah. What you're going to have to do is, and I can only say this from experience, is walk into a house with these beautiful 2 foot by 4 foot tile floors and say, oh, honey, there's this massive crack running through the whole room. There's a thing you could have done that would have avoided putting a crack in your expensive tiles. But, you can have the vinyl floor with a nice foundation, or you can have a bad foundation. Pay
for it now or pay for it later.
Yeah, basically. And almost like there's this weird strategy you could employ where it's like, well, you know what? Houses don't last, but I could build a new one every 5 years and just never deal with that.
If you can time the real estate market well enough, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Would that be difficult to do in terms of like, because like you could build the same house each time, but materials are going to get more expensive.
Theoretically, the house in 5 years is, I'll say, arguably a pretty tight time frame in a normal real estate market.
Okay.
Right. Pretty tight time frame. The house should be worth more than what it was, but there's a cost to sell it.
Right.
There's a cost to sell it.
Right. So all these damn realtors.
Right. Yeah. Are you still making money? The title companies and whatever else. Yep. Are you still making money at that point, or do you sell it for exactly what you paid for it? You come out on the wrong side of things. If you could time it well enough, you could make money doing it, but you never know what 5 years is going to look like.
So if you lived in a house for 2 years and you bought a 200K house and sold it for 270. You did a good job.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got
In 2
super,
years?
yeah, we got
100%.
super lucky. We moved into San Antonio. Man, it was right after Corona,
Mhm.
and we got like a 3% rate.
Yep.
And, then moved back over here to College Station. And,
You should have never sold it.
I would argue that like maybe, but that was a lot of cash.
Depends on what the
my age.
cash is,
Yeah.
if there's a need for it, if there's a end use for it, if it's just cash to put in the bank. Then,
Yeah. It definitely depends on like what people can do. What do you know how to do with your cash?
Yep.
Can you, are you skilled enough or educated enough? And I would imagine that like most people at the time I was 21, 22, like I don't know what to do with $35,000. And if I know anything about investing, it's that you shouldn't put any money into something you don't know about, except for cryptocurrency. You could put lots of money.
Obviously.
Yeah. What's
Except
your
for the last 2 months?
Yeah, that's right. Gosh darn it. I'm waiting for that to come back up to the moon. I'm waiting for that. What's your personal take on how do you balance your cryptocurrency, Bitcoin versus real estate?
Try to stay out of it as much as possible. My wife is a CPA.
Okay.
So I in our personal financials, I try to stay hands off. We have I think our little financial advisor calls it our little quarterback account.
Okay.
That we keep, X number of dollars or X percentage or, kind of yearly whenever we meet with them, in a readily accessible place. So that can be, oh my gosh, I found a house and we need to buy it because it's a great deal.
Oh, so like a dry powder bag.
So we can do it immediately. Or, hey, Bitcoin dropped $40,000 today. It's going to go back up tomorrow. Maybe we need to buy a bunch of Bitcoin or, Coca-Cola stock, whatever it is.
Yep.
We keep, a certain percentage of money in a readily available spot. Everything else is, already deployed into real estate or into, at this point in our life, fairly medium risk, mutual funds, whatever it is.
Okay. That makes sense. What would you say to the young entrepreneur or the young investor who's, they got their first job, they're starting to make some money and it's starting to pile up.
Yep.
So what would you say? Is real estate a good place to put money?
I'm a firm believer in real estate. I think I kind of have to be. I truly think that real estate is kind of a means to wealth, but happiness and something that if you keep a property for a long period of time, it's going to appreciate. Mm-hmm. It's going to be worth more than what you paid for it. If you can, obviously, if you're doing that, you're going to have some kind of income stream in that property. For me, in this environment with this interest rate, it's if you can break even, great.
Oh, like your cash flow is breaking even?
Yeah. If your cash flow is breaking even, great. Awesome. I mean, because our interest rates today aren't conducive to making a bunch of money month over month, right? Yeah. But you fast forward 15 years from now, one, that property is worth way more. You can refinance and take a whole bunch of cash out if you want to. Two, the lease rates, which are the income that you're getting on those properties, have probably gone up also. So all of a sudden you are cash flow positive. There's tax codes that are benefit that like a 1031 exchange. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where sell a property, buy another property, don't pay any taxes, continue to roll that thing. That's a generational thing that you can do as well, to where you can set up your kids, your grandkids, whatever, into a really, really good spot.
That makes sense. And there's also like I was going to say, I would imagine having a CPA for a wife helps.
I don't have to deal with any of our taxes.
That's nice.
Fantastic. Nice. She comes.
Well, so far you don't. I'm assuming that she does her job correctly.
So far the IRS has not called. The IRS has not called. No, not yet. At least.
Would you, if you were to describe, because there's like a risk tolerance scale in the accounting world of like, that we should probably not write that off.
Yep.
Like on a scale of 1 being super safe and 10 being super risky, where do y'all like to live?
She likes to live very close to 1, I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So Mr. IRS probably will not be calling.
Probably not.
Okay.
By the book, conservative.
Yeah.
You know, I have friends that just go buy properties and like, hey, babe, we bought another property. I don't do that in my house. We talk about everything. We determine. We sit down. We look at it.
Got it.
Build a little pro forma. What does it look like? What is our plan with it? Are we going to keep it for 50 years? Are we going to keep
well, that means that sounds like something you should do when you're going to buy anything expensive in the first place.
I agree, but I know a lot of people that don't.
Okay.
But definitely very thought out, I would say smart process and pretty conservative and not going to take a ton of risk. I don't, high risk, high reward, sure. But I don't, I think to be successful, you don't have to take that much risk.
Yeah.
A safe amount of risk.
Yeah. There was a guy who said, you will, it's probably some important rich guy somewhere. I forget his name. But he said, you become wealthy by taking a lot of risk with a little bit of money, and you stay wealthy by taking a little bit of risk with a lot of money. So like for younger people who have time to build it up again, maybe it's worth it.
Absolutely.
I know I'm going to take all my money.
Target date retirement funds. I mean, they go from risky to
there you go.
Very, very safe.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm going to go to Vegas this next weekend and put it all on black.
Very risky.
Yep.
Very risky.
Yeah. And hopefully make a lot of money doing that.
Come back very wealthy. Buy that house you've been talking about.
That's right. Yeah. I'll have my own studio.
Yeah.
I'll have you back.
There you go.
I'll have you back for another one. I'll tell you all about how you should change.
You can put it on red when you put yours on black.
Oh man, that's good. Okay. Last question for you.
Okay.
So what has been the hardest lesson you've had to learn through this world of real estate and investment? That's like, man, I was really calibrated by that one.
Yeah. And I think in general, it's not easy. So there's been several investment properties that we've gotten into that maybe we expected, let's just say $2,000 a month in income. And when we get into it, it's really only $1,000.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, oh, holy smoke, we completely misread this one. That for me, and we just talked about my wife is conservative. Like that is a big moment.
Yeah.
Where you're like, holy smokes, this is going to be negative cash flow for a long time.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I've ever had anything catastrophic happen. You have to spend a little bit of money to make money. Yeah. You know that.
Right.
But it's really like, it's expectations, knowing exactly and I say exactly, you never know exactly. Having a really good idea what you're getting into. We've had a couple that we didn't do enough diligence, or we just misread the situation, or just played it wrong, whatever it was. That at the end of the day, that in real estate, it's about money. And if it's negative money, that's not a good thing. You can't buy the next one if this one's not
right.
performing. And so it can set you back. For us, we set, a couple of years ago, we set like a 10 or 15 year plan. And if you have one or two of these misses, that can set that back 2 or 3 times very, very quickly. So it's, being adaptive. You got to be adaptive to it, but
right.
Making sure you know what you're getting into.
That's fair. There's something to be said about, like, I had this thought this morning that the sort of the definition of doing something risky is that you're probably going to fail at some point.
At some point.
That's kind of like the thing.
Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg, I think is Mark Zuckerberg, move fast and break shit. And if you're not moving fast enough, if you're not breaking shit, you're not moving fast enough.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I got another quote from Justin Waller, who's talking about, he had his first time, like, he thinks he's going to go bankrupt, build a big metal building business. And one of his mentors told him, like, if you don't think you're going bankrupt every 5 years, you're not trying hard.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not growing fast enough.
God.
I mean, I think, I don't know. I'm not there, so I can't tell you for sure, but I feel like at some point, maybe you feel like you've made it. that you're not worried about going bankrupt? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's just called retirement.
Well, so I'm sure you're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah. Huh?
Okay. So like from his perspective of, you live your life, minimize your liability column, maximize your asset column, right? When your assets can cash flow and cover your liabilities, you're now a free person.
Yep.
So, you could do that by only living on $1,000 a month. You could do that by living on $10,000 a month. The difference is like, well, now how many assets do you need, of course, to make up that cash flow? Let's say, wherever you're at in your own journey, like if you were at that point, what do you imagine yourself doing? You've gotten to the point where like you've bought your time back. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Where do you reinvest your energy?
For me, it is probably, we kind of talked before he came on air, is traveling, whether that be, and I think it kind of depends on how high that asset and liability difference is.
Yes.
Is it like private jet traveling and going to see the world? Is it, strapping down the truck in the pull behind camper and driving all over the country? I think for me, it's probably traveling, getting out and seeing. There's so much out there, to see, is just getting out and experiencing it all.
Would you rather be the kind of person who's flying in the private jet, but you got to wait another like 10 years? Or would you rather like start traveling and fly in next to the guy who's takes up 2 chairs?
Hopefully I can start traveling while continuing to build the assets. And then while I see the things I can see behind the wheel. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, I can do private jet to see all the things across the oceans.
There we go. It takes
gets
time.
More expensive.
Yes, yeah. And there's always that, like, how long are you going to put off the liabilities column? Like, you can't just have no life
when you retire,
only make money. You got to do something. Yeah.
It's a good point. When do you call it quits?
Right.
When do you say no?
Yeah, exactly. Cool, man. That's all I got.
Cool.
Awesome. Do you have any other thoughts?
I appreciate it, man. It's been good. I told you before, this is out of my comfort zone. So
you did a fantastic job.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Of course. The crowd over here has said hello. Shout out to Green Observer, Charlotte Nystar, the Werewolf, and Mr. Wyatt MG. Mr. Wyatt is a fellow from California who's awesome. Building these studio sheds, people backyards, like candy.
Yeah.
Like turn them out in every 2 days. It's crazy. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for coming on. Thank you for joining us. Where can the folks find you? I've got Boxwood Real Estate.
Yeah, Boxwood Real Estate is probably the best spot. I kind of told you I don't do a whole lot of personal social media, or I try not to. It's a time drain for me, but
you'd have too many women chasing after you.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be the problem.
Exactly.
Yep, all that money.
Boxwood Real Estate, we made a concerted effort to try to start using it more, so you can kind of see some of the projects we're working on, some of the houses we have for under construction, some of the houses that we have for sale, all that kind of stuff. That's good. Good call. Social media is the future. I know. You got to get on board. Awesome. Thanks everybody. We'll take it out.